What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with Reactions to the Classics, and today we have a fun one, a full album reaction to Setting Suns by The Jam, brought to us by our patron and longtime supporter and friend of the channel, Peter. Thank you, Peter. Peter has previously brought us, we did this 3-album run a little out of order. We did sound effects, then we did all mod cons, so now we're going to go in the middle here and get Setting Suns on the docket. So, before we get started, give us the thumbs up, hit the big red subscribe button. If you'd like to support us like Peter, the patrons make this channel run. We're so appreciative of them. Check out the Patreon link below. Give us a follow on Twitch for the live streams every Wednesday and Friday. And check out our Facebook group. So let's dive into this. Like I said, we've done, this is recognized by all my research as a great 3-album run. So we did the last one, sound effects. Then we did the earliest one, all mod cons. So let's settle in the middle with Setting Suns. Let's get into a little bit of the quick facts. The 4th album they released it in 1979. 4 in the UK, 137 in the US. If you haven't watched the previous reviews, the Jam just never made it in the US. What a shame for all of us here in the US. The sole single, the Eaton Rifles, became their first top 10 UK hit, peaking at number 3. 4th best album, 1979 by NME, with the Eaton Rifles and Strangetown ranked as numbers 1 and 5 among the year's top tracks. A little reminder, or if you're new to the Jam, Paul Weller, vocals, lead guitar, bass guitar, keyboards, backing vocals. We got Rick Buckler on drums and percussion, and of course Bruce Foxton on vocals, bass, rhythm, guitar, and backing vocals. A little history of the album, or a little background. Singer, guitarist, and songwriter Paul Weller originally conceived this album as a concept album detailing the lives of 3 boyhood friends who later reunited as adults after an unspecified war, only to discover they've grown up and apart, which happens. This concept was never fully developed. It remains unclear which tracks were originally intended as part of the story, although it is commonly agreed that Thick as Thieves, Little Boy Soldiers, Wasteland, and Burning Sky are likely constituents. Jam bootlegs feature a version of Little Boy Soldiers split into 3 separate recordings. Possible evidence that the song was intended to serve as a recurring motif, with separate sections appearing between other songs on the album. That would have been pretty cool. The liner notes also imply that the album was a somewhat rushed effort, which may explain why the original underlying concept, of course, was not fully developed, as well as the inclusion of 1 cover song and 2 prior releases. Smithers Jones had already been released. Heatwave is a cover, of course, the Martha and the Vandellas Motown hit, and since the Eaton Rifles was released in advance of the LP, this leaves only 7 entirely new original songs on the album, 10 songs, 32 minutes, which ought to be a fun ride. The album cover art features a photograph of Benjamin Clemens' bronze sculpture, the St. John's Ambulance Bearers, cast way back in 1919. It depicts a wounded soldier being carried by 2 ambulance workers. The sculpture is currently in the possession of the Imperial War Museum in London. All Music rates it a 5 out of 5 stars. International releases, remember they were always messing with stuff back then. The Canada release is substantially different from the original UK version and contains 12 tracks. I always like to make these clear because we got a lot of community members in Canada. If you have this album and then you listen to this review and you go, what is Sean doing, man? This is not the album, but it is the proper album. And of course the US LP reversed the size and inserted the single Strangetown as a second song on side 2 between Girl on the Phone and Thick as Thieves. So also, if you have the US version, it's not right either. All songs written by Weller except where I note. As always, before we get started, I won't have the music up. There will be a link below if you want to follow along, listen to the songs with me. If you just want to know what I think, hang out here. I'll have the lyrics up. As always, let's jump into this thing with the first track, Girl on the Phone. And I always do a lot of research. There was not a ton of research on any of these tracks, so we're just going to jump in. As always, Peter, thank you, appreciate you. Great touch at the end. I'll just start off with the end with the little, you can hear her, hello, hello, are you there? And then the hang up. Girl on the Phone. I'll tell you what, I don't know what we called this in 1979, but in 2021, we call this a stalker, and we're going to get us a restraining order. But Girl on the Phone keeps a ringing back. Her voice is smooth, but the tone is bland. She's telling me this and telling me that. She talks about me, and I must agree with what she says about me, about how nice I can be, but it makes no difference to my mind. And she knows all the details about me, knows the facts, height, weight, age. So she knows his fate. And this doesn't really freak him out so much. Every word I've ever said, every book I've ever read, she told me we met long ago, but he can't figure out where. She knows where he gets his shirts and pants, trousers, socks, leg measurements, and something else that I'll leave out of there that's not PG-13. And I must say it's unnerving to think that she knows me so well, better than anyone, better than myself. So he's getting concerned. She knows everything that he's ever listened to, every record she's listened to, every window he's looked through. I can't think when, but she should know. She told me that we met long ago. I can't think of when, but she should know. Girl on the phone keeps her ringing back. She's telling me this, she's telling me that. That's how it ends. We kind of come in with some chorus in there, some harmonies in there. A nice little fun, frantic 1979 song. That's a great, great opener because it really gets you just going, man. And Paul is on full display here. The instrumentation is fantastic. That's going to take us to the second track, Thick as Thieves, which once again, I don't have any research on, despite me trying, despite my best efforts. So let's just jump into it. Thick as Thieves. Shout out, first of all, before I ever get into the song, at Rick Buckler's drums. They were the star of this. I mean, the instrumentation was spot on, but Rick was the star of this one for me. Great song. Thick as Thieves. One of the things I like about Paul and his writing, he's not always writing these love songs. It's okay if you love songs. Either we're in love or I lost my love. All that great stuff. But he writes about the camaraderie of friendship sometimes, and that is much appreciated. And, you know, the whole concept of this song is we did all of this stuff together, right? We were thick as thieves. I mean, we were doing it. And they stole all this stuff, right? And all these great metaphors of the things that they stole, both literal things and figurative things. It starts out, you know, times were so tough, but not as tough as they are now. We were so close and nothing came between us and the world, no personal situations. Thick as thieves, us, we'd stick together for all time, and we meant it, but it turns out just for a while, we stole the friendship that bound us together. It talks about stealing from the schools and their libraries, the drugs that sent us to sleep, the drink that made us sick, all these things. So they had all these adventures together, all these things that bonded them, and they thought they were going to be best friends forever, but it just didn't work out that way. But something came along that changed our minds. I don't know what and I don't know why, but we seemed to grow up in a flash of time while we watched our ideals helplessly unwind. No, we're no longer as thick as thieves. No, we're not as thick as we used to be. No, it wasn't enough, and we've gone and spoiled everything. Now we're no longer as thick as thieves. So they were growing up, I think, as part of it, but probably in their teen years. And if you've lived on this earth long enough, I've had some friendships in my life that I thought would last forever, and they just didn't. There might not have been some great falling out. Just in life, you drift away. You get married, or you move, or you change jobs, and you're just not as tight as you once were. And you always find yourself longing for that closeness of a friendship again. That honestly, at my age, at 49, I don't know that I'll ever have a close friend like that again. I have Trey. He's my best friend. I have Gina. I have Mackenzie. You know, my wife and kids, and beyond that. In this channel, everybody in this community, I don't even know that I have time for a friendship like that. But I can see when you hear this song, I can recollect back to a couple friendships and reminisce that we were thick as thieves, man. It had some great times, and you just got to hold on to those times and not lament the friendship loss. But great songwriting right there. And now we're on to Private Hell. Once again, it's a broken record here, but I have no research on this one. Let's check it out. I don't know that I would say this is my favorite of the three songs so far, but it is by far the best produced, best instrumentally, best arranged. I mean, this song is really nice. It starts out, I don't want to say the song was manic when it starts out. I think it's intense, right? You can hear the intensity in Paul's vocals. You can feel it in the instrumentation. Everybody is spot on. The drumming is fantastic, but the guitar work by Paul and Bruce is just next level. The lyricism itself, he's running down people in their private hell, right? It's got to be intense, man. It's private hell. Closer than close, you see yourself, a mirror image of what you wanted to be. As each day goes by a little more, you can't remember what it was you wanted anyway. Wow. Your aging face, the face that was once so beautiful, is still there, but unrecognizable. Private hell. And the way he sings that, private hell. The man that you once loved is bald and fat and seldom in, working late as usual. So here's the wife. Your interest is waned. You feel the strain. Close your eyes, think of nothing but private hell. Think of Emma, wonder what she's doing, her husband Terry, and your grandchildren. So I'm guessing this is the guy now and got divorced maybe. Think of Edward still at college, his son. You send him letters. He doesn't acknowledge because he don't care. They don't care because they're all going through their own private hell. We all go through this private hell. And I mean, COVID has reminded us this, but we all go through financial, health, relational, whatever it is, issues. The morning slips away in a Valium haze. all of this stuff. At the very end, alone at 6 o'clock, you drop a cup, you see it smash. Inside you crack. You can't go on, but you sweep it up. Safe at last inside your private hell. Sanity at last inside your private hell. Just wonderful, wonderful song in the way it was all put together. Really enjoyed that one. Now we're up to song number 4, Little Boy Soldiers. Little Boy Soldiers. Now that song definitely had some deep and political meaning to it. For sure, it's about little boy soldiers, right? It's about the overarching concept of governments, for the most part. I'm not speaking for the UK government because I don't live there, right? But I can speak for the US and what I've seen in my life. Governments in general don't care about their young people in particular. They're viewed as foolish or whatever. They don't really care because they don't have the money to be spending on taxes or the political clout to support the political people. So they don't really care. But when there's a war or you get yourself in some trouble, who do you come calling on? Yeah, it's the young people because that's who goes and fights it. So, Paul's all in from the start. It's funny how you never knew what my name was. Our only contact was a form for the election. These days, I find that I don't listen. These days, I find that we're out of touch. These days, I find that I'm too busy. So why the attention? Now you want my assistance? What have you done for me? Then he's like, you've gone and got yourself in trouble. Now you want me to help you out. Then he goes on to pick up a gun and shoot a stranger, but I've got no choices, so here I come, war games. Right? You don't have a choice. You're put in the military. Here's what you're going to go do. Then he kind of gives a description of it, and he says, think of honor, queen, and country. You're a blessed son of the British Empire. God's on our side, and so is Washington. So he throws a little shade at the U.S. too, right? In other words, it's not really my fault. I'm going to follow orders. I don't really feel any remorse. He kind of talks about that later on in the song. But in this instance, it's like it's all justified, right? Because it's for country. So it's all okay no matter what war atrocities we've done. And that's kind of been used to rationalize behavior from time immemorial. As long as we've been on this earth, there's been some form of war or battle or conflict. So an excellent song, Come Out on the Hills with the Little Boy Soldiers. Just an excellent song. At the end, they send you home in a pine overcoat, a coffin, with a letter to your mom saying, find enclosed one son, one medal, and a note to say he won. And I think the irony is obvious there, right? To say he won. He's coming home in a pine box, but hey, he won. So they kind of want to get the last word of, he did it. So, man, I like that song. It wasn't about, how catchy it is. It was about the power of it. And they had a nice little reprieve there, not quite in the middle. It was earlier on in the song where they bring it all down and you kind of hear the military type instrumentation. And then when Paul comes back in, his vocals are pretty quiet, and then they start building and building to build on the intensity of the song. So that one is fantastic. And now we're up to the last song on side 1. I don't have anything on it either on the research side, but I did find that it features a recorder of all things. So let's check this one out. Wasteland, from the lyrics, I think it's about revisiting somewhere you spent a lot of your formative years, and now it's being torn down, or it's been torn down. It's either decrepit or they've torn it down and they're building new stuff, and so you're going back, kind of going over your memories. Meet me on the wastelands later this day. We'll sit and talk and hold hands, maybe. So probably maybe a current love interest or someone who he used to have a love interest in. One of the things I've noticed since that, they drop maybe one, word of profanity in a lot of the songs, but it's always used. It's not just some gratuitous thing there. It's always used for a powerful point, and it was on this one too. I won't say what it was. We'll keep it PG-13, but we'll talk about the old days when the Wasteland was released, when we could play this the last verse and think without feeling guilty. Maybe meet me later, but we'll have to hold hands, tumble and fall. And even this nice little call and response, tumble and falling, like our lives, exactly like our lives. And he has another little thing in here. We'll smile, but only for a few seconds. For to be caught smiling is to acknowledge life, a brave but useless show of compassion, and that is forbidden in this drab and colorless world. So not a cheery outlook at that point for Paul on the life in this song, but this is one of those songs that so far it's I'm in the middle of my 3rd Jam album. Plus we did a top 10 Weller that had the Jam on there as well for Peter. And this is just what I would call a classic jam song. There's nothing spectacular about it. It's neither good nor bad for me, but because of that, it actually is good. It just doesn't stand out in their catalog, but the instrumentation is tight. We even brought in a recorder. Who else is doing that? The guitars were fantastic. Drumming was nice. Paul's lyricism was there. Some nice little harmonies in there with the call and response. So just a nice little tight track, under 3 minutes, and that ends out side one. Now we're going to head over to side two. I don't have any research on this first song either, but by looking at the title, Burning Sky, I haven't cheated and looked at the lyrics or anything, but I have a feeling this one might be an intense one, plus choosing it to open this side. Let's find out. Burning Sky. So I was halfway right on this. This is a deeper, intense song. I thought Burning Sky might have had some more war overtones in there, keeping with what might have been the theme of this album or concept album at one time. But this is all about greed and money. It reminds me somewhat of Thick as Thieves, just in that we once had a bond when we were innocent and idealistic, and now it doesn't matter anymore. But he starts out, how are things in your little world? I hope they're going well, and you are too. You still see the same old crowd, the ones who used to meet every Friday. I'm really sorry I can't be there. But work comes first. I'm sure you'll understand. Things are really taking off for me. Business is thriving, and I'm showing a profit. And in any case, it wouldn't be the same because we've all grown up and we've got our lives. And the values that we've had once upon a time, bringing in a little fairy tale illusion there, seems stupid now because the rent must be paid and some bonds severed and others made. Now, I don't want you to get me wrong. Ideals are fine when you are young, and I must admit we had a laugh, but that's all it was and ever will be. Because the burning sky keeps burning bright, and as long as it does, and it always will, there's no time for dreams when commerce calls and the tax man's shouting because he wants his dough, and the wheels of finance won't begin to slow. So I read you over half the lyrics of the song because the lyrics tell the story, right? He's working, he's going, look, we might have believed that this stuff over here was important, but now that we're in the real world, it's all about making money, right? Because that's what they tell you when you grow up. You got to make money, and that'll make you a success, and you'll be happy. But he's even saying in the start of it, he doesn't get to see anybody anymore, his friends or any of that. He's been jaded by life. So a very powerful song, because he talks about the burning skies at the very end, and they always will be burning. The man is always going to want his money. You're never going to get away from it, and it's never going to be enough. Now up to Smithers Jones. Bruce Foxton actually wrote this and sings this. It was initially recorded as a straightforward rock take for the B-side of the non-album single When You're Young, which was released in August of '79. The song was reworked with all string arrangements for the album, the suggestion of the band's drummer, of course, Rick Buckler. It differs from the majority of self-penned tracks by the Jam, and it was not written by Weller, as I just mentioned. It was instead written by bassist and vocalist Bruce Foxton. It's widely considered to be Foxton's finest songwriting contribution to the Jam, with the lyrical inspiration drawing from Foxton's own father, who had decided to retire upon being made redundant, and I've already mentioned it, but usually the best songwriting and performances come from difficult or personal situations. Smithers Jones, I will say that the string arrangement was a very intelligent decision. It just adds something to the song. I don't know how to even put it, but it adds to that lyrical content. It just seems to work perfect, and they just build up a nice little story. Smithers Jones is the guy, and he's trying to catch the train. It's got to be there by 8. It's always on time because he's got to be at the office by 9. He's got on his pinstripe suit, his tie. He's stopping by to get a copy of the Times. He walks in, he's greeted, how you doing? And then the little, let me get inside of you, let me take control of you. We could have some good times, and all this worry will get you down. I'll give you a new meaning to life. I don't think so. So they hit that a few times in there. He's sitting on the train. You're nearly there. You're part of the production line. You're the same as him. You're like 10 sardines. Get out of the pack before they peel you back. So the little sardines peel you back. Arrive at the office, spot on time. Clock in the wall hasn't struck 9. So he made it. And then as soon as he walks in, they tell him good morning. And the boss wants to see you and tells him, I hope it's the promotion you've been waiting for. So he's like, yeah. And then the boss tells him, come on. Come in, Smithers, old boy. Take a seat. Take the weight off your feet. I've got some news to tell you. There's no longer a position for you. Sorry, Smithers Jones. So then it cuts and he's at home, having some tea, having his slippers on, watching TV. It's time to relax now. You've worked your arse off. But the only one smiling is the suntan boss. Work and work and work and work till you die. There's plenty more fish in the sea to fry. So back to that overarching theme. Look, man, when you work your butt off all your life, most of the time, the only one getting rich is the guy sitting at the top who isn't doing a lot. That's not always the case, but you're just a cog in the machine, as our boys from Pink Floyd would reference it. You're just there, man, and you can be replaced. You're all replaceable. And as Smithers Jones found, no matter how hard he worked or how much of his life he gave to this company, once he became expendable, it was see you later. So a nice offering there. And that will bring us up to Saturday's Kids. Saturday's Kids, I would say that was the most fun instrumentally in atmosphere. Starts out with that fantastic guitar. Guitars are fantastic throughout, so Bruce and Paul were both really putting in the work here. The little la 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 la, it starts that way and it ends that way. And then bookmarked in between are some pretty good lyrics talking about Saturday's boys and then Saturday's girls. You know, they're starting out in life. They don't have a ton of money, and these are kind of the things they do. They wear cheap perfume for the girls, and the boys are waiting for the halftime results. They live life with insults, drink lots of beer. They have the afternoon tea. And then their moms and dads smoke capstan, non-filters, wallpaper lives because they'll all die of cancer. What goes on? What goes wrong? Don't be smoking those cigarettes. Paul even knew that back in 79. Save up their money for a holiday, so they're going to go on vacation. Then they marry the girl next door. These are real creatures that time has forgotten. Not given a thought, it's the system. So we go back to that predominant theme. Hate the system. What's the system? And then talks about, they've kind of got married and now they go live in these houses and wear V-neck shirts and baggy trousers. So I enjoyed that one just because it was a nice instrumental just ride, man. Less than 3 minutes long, just a fun little tune. Now we're up to the only tune I knew on here because we have done it previously. I'm not going to say where because I want to give away, things that if you watch another video, I don't want you to know that this song is on there. But we got the Eaton Rifles. And it was the only single to be released from the album. Number 1 on the Tracks of the Year for 1979 by NME. Became the band's first top 10 hit in the UK, peaked at number 3. It's also the only official Jam single for which there was not a video recorder, which is interesting because it tells a great story, and you could have done a great video here. But Eton College is a famous English public school located in Berkshire, which was regarded as the epitome of Britain's privileged elite. Their cadet corps is the Eton College Combined Cadet Force, which was founded in 1860 as the Eton College Rifle Corps. The lyrics of the song recount the difficulties faced by the unemployed and lower paid working class in protesting against a system stacked against them. Does that sound familiar? It recounts a street battle Paul had read about in the newspapers concerning elements of Right to Work March in 1978, which broke off to attack pupils from Eton who had been jeering the lunchtime marchers. Hence in there the line, "Hello, hooray, an extremist scraped with the Eton Rifles." There was a lot of class hatred in my songs at the time, said Weller. I know, Paul, we've been experiencing it. Eton Rifles would be the obvious example of that. We used to go on Sunday drives with my uncle, and we'd drive through Eton, and I remember seeing the young chaps. So, you've got the quote elite over here jeering the working man. So this is a fantastic song. Like I said, I know it. I've only ever heard it once, actually, but it is a fantastic song. The Eton Rifles. The Eton Rifles. You have a 1-minute outro there, which makes it also unique for a song on this album, which was a little more manic. The guitars were all over the place, a little fuzzy, a little manic. The drumming was fantastic. I think just to build the intensity of the song, because it's a very intense song. It's just what I talked about in the beginning. They're walking through and they end up getting this battle. Paul and his friends do with the Eton Rifles. Everything was all fine until the guys went and got their artillery, and we're talking about them playing rugby, the Eton boys, and so that would make them a little tougher. All that rugby puts hairs on your chest. What chance have you got against a tie and a crest, right? Rich people. Hello, hooray, what a nice day for the Eton Rifles. And he gets that little Eton Rifles. Hello, hooray, I hope rain stops play for the Eton Rifles. Thought you were clever when you lit the fuse, tore down the House of Commons in your brand new shoes, because a lot of these people are more well off that are in Eton. So he's talking about they're going to go on to serve in government and have these powerful, influential position. Hello, hooray, cheers then, mate. It's the Eton Rifles. Hello, hooray, an extremist scrape with them. So they're going to get into a fight. So he must be talking about one of his friends here. He says, what a catalyst you turned out to be. Loaded the guns, then you run off home for your tea. Left me standing like a guilty schoolboy. And then on the next verse, he ends it with left me standing like a naughty schoolboy. And then it didn't turn out well for Paul and his friends. We came out of it. Naturally, the worst. I mean, what else could you expect? Beaten and bloody, and I was sick down my shirt, were no match for their untamed wit. Though some of the lads say they'd be back next week. So even though they got beat down, let's come back next week. Give it another shot. So a great song, sticks in your head. All of it is just so well put together, from instrumentation to Paul's vocal performance. And now we're to the final song, which I just find it to be an odd choice, right? Maybe I'll think different after I hear it. I mean, I know this song. It's Heatwave. It's a 1963 song written by the Holland Dozier Holland songwriting team. They're Motown's, I would say, most famous songwriting team. If you want to know more about them, I have a Supremes Top 10 up on the channel, and I talk all about them there. But it was first made popular by the Motown vocal group Martha and the Vandellas. Billboard actually has a song at number 12 on their list of 100 greatest girl group songs of all time. I'll save what I think about them including this on this album until I hear it. Let's hear it, Sean, before you judge it. Let's finish off this album with Heatwave. Heatwave. I will say they did a great job. The musicianship and instrumentation on this is fantastic. It's a very quick song. Paul really got after it. So it was all done very professionally. There's nothing bad about it. It still just makes no sense to me, right? Because this album is very serious. Even on the songs that are fun, there's some serious lyricism in here. So to throw this song on as the closing track is just strange to me. Now, I will say the album's only 32 minutes long, and this song's less than 2.5 minutes long. So I wonder if they wanted to cross that 30-minute mark, because you don't want to release an LP that's less than 30 minutes. So maybe they just chose what they could. Look, this is short. We can pound this thing out. So there's nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't fit the album whatsoever. So I don't know. But let's move past that and go to my favorite tracks. This is going to be difficult. I know which one song it's not going to be, and so do you guys. Heatwave. I got to go with the Eaton Rifles. That was obviously fantastic. I'm going to go with Thick as Thieves. Whew. And the next one's going to be tough. I'm going to go with Little Boy Soldiers, but really, the only song I didn't care for at all was Heatwave. And not that it was bad, like I said, it just didn't fit, and it seemed like it was a little downer in the album and the fact that it just... all this great stuff, and then we're going to end on a song that doesn't fit with anything that the jam is really about. But I beat that to death, I know. Now we're going to go to my overall score. Like I said, we've already done sound effects and all mod cons. It's hard to know without listening to them back to back to back. You know, I don't want to get into this thing of my favorite album of them is the last one I heard, because I don't know their albums inside and out. And that's the tendency of what happens when you do these rankings and reactions. But I will say, I do believe I like this album the best. I think I like the serious tones of it. I think the instrumentation's fantastic. The writing is really good. So on first listen, I'm going to be at an 8.0. So now I'm going to go back and listen to those three albums chronologically in my spare time. But I've become a big fan of the jam. I've mentioned it in previous reviews. Just not somebody that got over in the States at all. And I will say in this album in particular, the lyricism was fantastic. But there are things that I know I lost, not only because it was written in the late 70s, but mainly because I'm an American, and it's got a lot of British culture in there and things that would be, more impactful and meaningful historically and societally and economically to someone who actually lives there. But I did the best I could with it, and it was still powerful to me. But this was the album I noticed that the most, yet it's still my favorite. So as always, appreciate you, Peter. Appreciate everything you bring to the channel. And thanks, everybody, for joining me, and I will see you next time.